rise and join me in saluting the flag of our great nation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody remain standing for a moment of silence for our troops, their families, and all our first responders. Thank you. Any public comment on the resolution that we're putting forward tonight? Yes.
Is there going to be another public comment after?
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, there'll be a public comment after. This is just for the resolution that's on tonight.
Yeah, it's a resolution to appoint a professional service contract for environmental services.
Was there any papers put out by the employees?
Yes, they're on the table.
I just walked in a few minutes ago, they weren't there.
I just put them out there. They're out there.
All right, so we need to postpone comment until people can adequately.
All right, go get it. I'll wait for you.
Okay.
April, there's an acronym on here, and I don't believe there's an explanation of what that is prior. So what is LSRP services?
It's a licensed site remediation professional. This has to do with, Major notified us that they no longer will perform that service. By law, we have to do it. New Jersey State DEP notified us. We had 45 days to get somebody in because of violations from 1999 and other notice of violations from the marina. So it's a state law that you need an LSRP on staff, and that's why this resolution is being put forward for services to remediate the notice of violation from the New Jersey State DEP.
So the previous municipal engineer served in this capacity.
Major had somebody that performed this function. All right, they sent me a letter. As soon as I got the letter, I notified our engineer. State mandates that you need it. We got the recommendation of Brinkerhoff. They came down, gave us a proposal, and we're just following what we have to do with state guidelines.
And when Major notified us that they were no longer going to do it, they also notified us of a remediation violation that the borough had in 1999.
We were notified that from the marina from 1999 that there's been a violation from, I believe, an oil tank that was down there for years.
Right.
So we need a licensed site mediation professional to make sure that we're in compliance down there, especially by the marina, with any type of violations. And then we have some other violations that we have to attend to within the next month or so, pursuant to New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So that's what we're working on. That's why we had to do it.
All right, and these are two different, under number one, we've got the 12.5. So that's the PFAD for service with a notice of violation. So that's the oil tank from 1999. That shall not exceed 12.5. And then for the LSRP, licensed site remediation professional services shall not receive the 10,975.
Right, that's for both the violation of the 1999 notice of violation and then other violations that we have down the Marine Basin. That is not to exceed that. We're trying to get all the reports from DEP in order to know exactly what's going to cost us. But we had to get them as on retainer.
And are these fees paid out of the general fund of the borough, or are these specific to the marina?
Marina's out of the general fund.
Right, that's out of the general fund.
The general fund.
Okay. So we try to operate that.
We try
our income.
Yeah. We try to. Do you have any questions on it?
Well, just, was this work bid out? Did you get multiple bids on this? This is just saying we have one company. Was there any bidding
Well,
out?
this is only for the professional that has to write the bid specs and everything on what needs to be done.
Okay, but you're gonna pay this person, right?
Right.
So I think, you know,
It's under the bid threshold. It doesn't need to be put out to bid.
what was the dollar amount?
It's lower than the bidding threshold, and for professional services like this, you don't have to go through the formal bidding requirements. In addition, there was a need for Belmar to do something quickly because we were sort of Major caught us a little by surprise by sending us a letter saying we're not doing it anymore, and we have to have someone to do that. So those are the reasons we have the right to do it the way we did, and we did.
Okay. So there's a minimum, there's a minimum amount that you can go up to the bid. If the guy, is the contract with him just to go that high, or can he just keep going up higher?
No, it's a flat bid, it's a flat
Flat
contract. I
fee?
think
Not to exceed.
13,000.
And we hope it comes in lower.
Okay.
Anyone else?
A motion to close the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-73?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Councilman Wong? Mayor Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Next, we have first reading and an introduction on ordinance 2020-13, an ordinance of the Belmar Council amending chapter 29 entitled Water Sewer Rates. We have a motion to offer for first reading and introduction.
Second.
I'll say.
Councilman Wong?
Yes.
Mayor Walker?
Yes.
Councilman McCracken?
Yes.
Okay. Public comment? Yes.
Gerald Buckafusco, 409 Fifth Avenue. I have reason to believe that this meeting is not being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. I base that on the fact that the act requires a 48-hour notice, adequate notice, which is 48 hours, given the time, date, location, and to the extent known, the agenda of any regular, special, or rescheduled meeting. Right, there are three pieces to this requirement. The first one, obviously, prominently posted in at least one public place reserved for such or similar announcements. It's the second one, I think, that hasn't been met, which is mailed, telephoned, telegrammed, or hand-delivered to at least 2 newspapers, which newspapers shall be designated by the public body to receive such notices because they have the greatest likelihood of informing the public within the area of jurisdiction of the public body of such meetings, one of which shall be the official newspaper where any such has been designated by the public body, and if the public body has failed to so designate, where any has been designated by the governing body of a political subdivision whose geographic boundaries are coextensive with that public body. I checked, actually the agenda says that the notice was sent out on February 20th, which is a Thursday. If it was sent to the Coast Star, I presume they don't publish until next Thursday. So that means there was no publish in the Coast Star. I checked the Asbury Park Press. There has been no notice of this meeting in any of the editions of the Asbury Park Press since the 20th, which means that they're not.
There was notice on the 23rd, excuse me, there was notice on Tappan 2 on the 23rd of February.
That's not a newspaper.
It's not a newspaper, but it's what we use to, a lot of people use Tappan 2 as their news medium.
There is a provision in here that says you can use the internet, but that does not override the position that it has to be in 2
The
newspapers.
statute requires that we provide notice to the newspapers.
Right,
And we did that 48 hours before tonight.
knowing that they could not publish
I
it.
don't know about that yet. I don't think that's true.
Well, they're not required to publish it, they're required to be notified.
Yeah.
So the
Well, notify them.
Coast Star, the Coast Star, the Asbury Park Press, and Tappan to it are listed as our official
Right.
newspapers, and all 3 were notified on the 20th, and it was posted at Borough Hall and posted on our website.
Okay. Councilor, you might be aware of this. There's a case, Patterson versus Cooper, which actually cites an earlier case of Ward versus Upper Township. In that, the court says, when a public body sends meeting notices to newspapers for publication and to the actual or readily discernible knowledge of that body, those newspapers cannot publish the notice at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting. There is no compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Logic demands this conclusion. Were the opposite true, the purpose of the law would be circumvented easily. The court in Patterson versus Cooper agreed with that, and that it's a settled law, basically, that it has to be published 48 hours or before that for adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Act. And we have not had that. Which means that any actions that you do tonight are going to have to be redone.
Well, somebody here doesn't agree with you, and we think we complied with the statute, and so be it.
And I think you haven't.
Okay.
And you haven't.
You win. I mean, we
Okay.
can stop. Yes,
So
we
you're
have.
going to redo this at another meeting?
No, I'm being facetious. We have. What I'm saying is you win because you want to keep on talking, you get the last word.
No.
We've complied with the statute. We have
That's
to-
your opinion. My opinion is you haven't.
I agree with that. That's your opinion.
I know. But my opinion is correct. Well, I'll bring a verified complaint in Superior Court, and we'll find out whether or not I'm correct or you're correct.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Well,
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Steve Lemoyne, 403 C Street, right here in Belmar. I haven't been able to attend a lot of the council meetings lately because I have childcare issues to deal with on Tuesdays. But can you explain, or maybe I just haven't seen it, why we're having a tax increase?
You mean water rates
I
increase?
mean, water rate increase, right? You know,
Well, there was a $400,000 shortfall in it, so that we have to try and make up. And we're trying all different ways on how to do it. We think we come up with the best solution that'll least affect the most amount of people here, and trying to move the heavier use rates to the people that use the most amount of water. So,
And what was the shortfall, what caused the shortfall?
using all the, we knew we had a problem last year, but it was using all the surplus and moving the surplus around so that we got caught with zero surplus and the increase in costs. And
So obviously, it sounds like expenses have now exceeded revenue.
Yes.
right,
Okay, right. Well, what's driving expenses?
there's a lot of factors that are driving the water rates. They weren't matching for the last 4 years, but how they did it to keep it flat was they just kept using the surplus. Well, everything else was going up, so now we're caught this year because there's no surplus.
in
Okay,
addition, if I could, the your sanitary sewer on all the towns, it goes to the county to be treated. The county, and you get billed by the county for the number of gallons you send to them. They keep raising their rates to us.
Well, that smurs them, and then plus, we have a lot of water going through that shouldn't be going through in their sewer system. We're trying to work on that because every time it rains real heavy, we get a big flow into the sewer system, so our rates are going up that way too. But
Okay, but I've heard that issue before,
I know.
but I have never seen any action, right, measurable action taken against that.
Mike Campbell and his guys have been doing a great job taking care of a lot of that. Trying to get all these sub pumps piped into the storm drains instead of into the sewer system.
Right?
So they've been working with a lot of homeowners.
Maybe I just haven't seen it in town. Right? What has been done?
What has been done to stop the infiltration?
No, he just said,
With the sub pumps.
Sub pumps
Some pumps going into the source.
going into
There's been a lot of
the
them.
sewer system. He said that DPW has done a lot to correct that issue. I'm just curious to see, what was done.
Okay, when we go out and we're doing our meter inspections, we check the sump pump lines, to see where they're going. We have made several recent ones. Again, that we call the police department, call the code enforcement. If they're taking the sump pump from their cellar and pushing it into these sewer lines, then they're cited and they get fined, and that's what we're doing.
Is that like 5 a week that you do?
I
10 a
there's
week
no-
that you do?
I don't have an answer for that.
Right, so.
Well, anytime they find them, so,
Right, but,
I know there's been a lot done, because that's one of the
We've
things
done,
we're
we
working
put
on.
out the literature, and again, it's an active thing, so there's no set. Today's Thursday, we're doing some pump inspections on people's cellars. I can't remember, I can't get
So
into
Mike, I know, Steve, you haven't said this, but maybe this is about what you're trying to get to. At one point, when you were attending the meetings regularly, we talked about putting some kind of a colored smoke into the system that would go into people's houses that we could see, and then that would identify they had an illegal sub pump pumping into the sanitary system. And Mike, could you walk through that process? Because I know we formally didn't do that, but a notice was sent out, and as a result of that notice, my understanding was there was a significant number of people that self-reported, corrected the problem, that you determined the cost to do that test was no longer feasible given the number of the people that had reported the system and that your staff had found while doing these inspections. Am I kind of correct? Am I
Yes.
correct on that?
Yes, and it goes one step farther. The reason for the smoke test was because we were in the K Street area, and it was a area where we were talking about the water infiltration coming in so hard. So again, once we got that resolved with the pump being done, putting we had Oswald come in and fix the breaks in the lines, and we also put out the literature for people telling we're going to go out and do the smoke test. The water that was going through there went down greatly, number one. Number two, to put the smoke test in, you have to have the fire departments there, you have to have the state there, DEP there. So again, we did just to do it for the whole town on a, I'm going to catch basis, is kind of tough to get it resolved. So what we have been doing is, when we're going down to the cellars, we are making visual inspections to see where they're going, and we're tackling them, on that
And
range.
code enforcement looks at that every time they do an inspection.
Yes.
So then, Mayor, have you seen, do we have numbers that show our gallons decreasing as a result of the work by the DPW?
We have meter rates and SMRs that we get every month, yes.
Okay, so have we?
I haven't seen, but I guess our CFO has.
Yeah, because I mean, if we had what we use and what we treat to be equal, you probably wouldn't need a tax increase. It's a point I'm trying to get at. Okay, right? And
That I
so,
don't know.
and I trust you, Mayor, and the council, and the heads of all the departments to take care of this for us.
Also,
Okay?
Steve-
And as far as I'm concerned, you failed.
Steve, if you were at the last meeting, which I knew you weren't because of the personal situation you're in, our auditor gave a chart, and we need to get you a copy of that. If you look at that, you'll be able to see very clearly from 2014 what costs have stayed the same, what have increased, and the increases primarily in debt service coverage, and how much of the reserves were had in 2014, and how it's been dropping each year up until now, 2020 later. When you see that, I'll explain everything to you.
Okay, but debt service, I mean, interest rates are at all-time lows, right? So, I mean, debt service, we should be refinancing, right, and lower debt service, right? So,
And again, I know you haven't been to meetings, but our CFO reported with our auditor at the last meeting and the meeting before, we've refinanced everything. Got rid of our short-term, high-interest debt and financed it favorable interest rates.
so on the big picture side, right?
Yeah.
Came down from 35 million to 31 million in 1 year. I think that's pretty good.
Okay. Goodbye.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Yes, Joe?
I just had a couple of comments, more or less, about your new ordinance.
Talk in the mic. Can't hear.
I think most of us are not happy with the new price increase. Okay. A couple of years ago, our former borough administrator sat here at the table and told us that they made an additional agreement with the Manasquan, with the reservoir and our water that we pull off of that. Instead of 6 months out of the year, we were going to be doing 8 months, and this would be a savings to the taxpayer. What happened to the savings? I thought we were going to get maybe a decrease in our rates. That was maybe about 3 years ago, she said that.
I'm not familiar with any agreement with Mercer, but Manasquan Richard.
Yeah, where she sat here and she said that we're drawing water off of our wells an extra 2 months.
That was
And
New
this
Jersey
was-
American Water, that they renegotiated that contract.
Oh, it wasn't the sewer, it was the water.
Oh,
It was
no, water.
water,
I'm
yeah.
talking water.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
But anyway, so that money just didn't do what it was supposed to do?
And every year, like I said before, they had like about $1 million surplus probably in 13, and they just kept eating off the surplus every time the water rates, the expenses were going up, and they just kept eating off the surplus until, and we knew when we got in here last year, we had a problem with it, but we were trying to figure out what we were gonna do. You know, like the beach isn't metered the right way, so we gotta, this year we're gonna put meters down the beach to see how much water is being used down there and take all that money. But the problem is right now, this is why we're having a special meeting, is because we have to put a budget in place. And right now, the state will not approve our budget on the water sewer the way it is right now. So, believe me, all of us had so many meetings over this thing, trying to figure out the easiest way
I understand.
to work it out.
Just, where'd the money go? And my second issue is the reading of my meter. We have I'm one person, so I'm in that category with 5,000 gallons of water,
Mhm.
right? And the meters are read 4 times a year, quarterly.
Mhm.
Quarterly is 91 days in my estimation, right? Now, I have a problem. I've already spoken once or twice to Kelly. This is my water usage. No, you can borrow this. You get If you look,
You're too good to me.
you're looking red, no, 90 days. The only year that actually the meter was read properly was in the year 2017. Do you see where I'm being shorted and over? I got 74, I got 106, I got 81, 70, 111, not 90, not 91. So my reading, when they're going 111, 120 days, I'm going over and getting charged excess. Does it make sense?
No, I see what you're talking about,
So,
yeah.
especially the last 2 years, the erratic reading of the meter, there is no 90 days in there. Got 111, 70, 113, 71. Where's the 90? 89, 91, 92. So I would like that corrected. So I need somebody, and I'm only one person. Everybody in the borough is probably getting an erratic reading as well. So
No, I see what
if
you're
my
talking
rate
about.
is going
I don't
up,
have an answer for you, we'll have to check it out.
well,
Find
I'm
out.
just saying, if my rate is going up to 88 something, I don't want excess because, you're 2.5, 3 weeks past 90 days to read my meter.
Mhm.
So what do you suggest?
Well,
Could I come in and ask for credit?
Well, we'll have to,
Looking at you.
well, I think you're looking at me. We'll take a look at it. We've made a lot of changes in the water department in the past year. There was a lot of problems with zero reads and no reads. There was no fail-safe when there was not a zero read or no read situation. We were billing the tenant instead of the owner of the building.
That's not my problem.
Listen to me. Well, I want to explain to you where we're coming from. You just spoke, and I just want to let you know what's going on. There's a lot of problems that we've tackled on with the water department, okay? Whatever happened before we got here, we understand, okay? That's in the past, but you take one of our biggest complexes in town, 104 units, they haven't paid the water bill since 2016, and it slipped through the cracks, okay? And we worked on that. The borough was notified in 2016 in regards to that. Okay, so there's a lot of fail-safes in the water department that we're trying to fix based on our program, on our Edmonds program, that we're trying to work all this through and make it so it's good for the residents, good for the borough of Belmar. So we are looking into these things. I was unaware of this. I will take a look at this for you, and we'll see what, we don't talk to the DPW, but at the end of the day, that's the problem that we've been having as far as the culture of how they worked here.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
2017 worked.
Can I ask you a
Whoever those
question?
guys were, maybe get them back on the job.
They're still here.
I want to ask you a question because I just want to make sure I'm understanding everything correctly. So, for example, the last date you have on here, you have 8/28/19 to 12/19/19. It's 112 days.
Yes,
And the charge was for 5,130, so you got charged for in excess of 130 gallons over that 5.
well, I wouldn't have been over if they read that in 90 days.
Right, so that's why I just want to make sure. So your point is if that was
Yes.
not 112 that was 90. You may not have gone over that 130, very likely you wouldn't have,
Right.
and then there wouldn't have been that excess
The only
charge.
time I go over is in the summer, and not by much, now that I'm by myself. I'm not using that kind of water, having that kind of company. But all of these excess charges are days, if you look at the numbers, you know, instead of being read at 90 days, it's 113 days, 116 days, you know, 2 to 3 weeks later than it should be. A quarterly reading is 91 days. I would like to see that done.
So how can we rectify that and get these meters read within a reasonable day or two of the time?
Well, you know, somebody did it in the year 2017, 94, 89, 92, 90.
Yeah, so, okay.
We'll have to see what we can do with that.
Okay, before I get the next bill, because I don't want to go over
No, I don't either.
at the new rate. Because otherwise I'm coming to you, Mark, and you're giving me the money.
Steve's covered me.
Thank you.
Let me go over. Yes, Linda.
Linda Sharkus, 4th Avenue. Last meeting, I was a little surprised to hear about this problem with the water. And I think it's disappointing hearing tonight that this problem, you were aware of it last year. I'd like to suggest that we create study groups, because in town, you have far more engineers and scientists in the general population than you do have sitting on council. And I think we could work together as a community to solve many of our own problems if we're aware and have some time. For instance, it's not just the sump pumps going into the sewer. You have showers where to get an outdoor shower, you need to put a roof on. You'd be amazed how many of those covers have been removed from the showers. Or have you taken into consideration how much water is pumped into a pool, that if you're doing it based on water consumption and are you paying, is that billed separately for the pools, or do you look at recycling that going into the sewer system? Are the two independent, or is there a correlation between water and sewer?
There is. Well, even people that have a separate sprinkler meter, it's a different price just for the sprinkler meter, because it's not going into the sewer system. But it all depends on how they fill the pool up. If they're just filling it, they can charge the price for filling the pool without, or, Mike, they called you guys for a reading before they?
They call before they fill their pool, and then they're not charged the sewer portion of the water.
Charge about half, more or less.
But they might not be charged for recharge for,
It doesn't go through the sewer. So the county doesn't charge us for the treating of the sewer because the water doesn't go through the sewer system.
okay. So what are we gonna do about the showers that are open?
The showers, we can talk to code enforcement about again. But again, when you said before, this is just a small part, it's a minor part. When I spoke with the CFO, the water we're talking about is certainly it's important, and we have to account for it. This has to do with debt that was in the water department. She explained it to me today when she was explaining the whole ordinance to me today, that for years we were paying the minimum, same as it was on a credit card, instead of paying it, any interest, not just your interest, paying any principal off. For years they were paying off the principal, then they took longer bonds or something. I don't want anybody to think this is just what's going into SMRSA. SMRSA has not gone up that high. They go up, and it's part of it, but it is not how we got caught into this debt.
I don't know.
The water going in, I'm just telling you, the water going into the sewer is not creating this total debt. So I just want to be sure that we are doing what we can to stop that. I will certainly look into the showers. It's a great point. But again, that's code enforcement. We're not enforcement, but I will speak to the code enforcement officials down and start looking at that, because it is important. And you are right about gray water going in there. So again, even when it rains. But other than that, there's a large part of this that is debt. It's not just water. So again, I'll make that clear.
I think all of us in the community would prefer to hear about these things sooner rather than later. If you knew last year, it would have been nice that, we heard about it then.
Well, we were working on it last year, but what the problem is like the business administrator said, we found over 200, we finally discovered over 200 places that the meters were broke. So now, once we've calculated how many years they were broke and not working, and we went to put the meters in, now we have to wait for the first quarter to see how much water usage they use so we can backfill it. But we were hoping that we could have got that done before this, so we wouldn't have had to raise it and try to balance it out that way. But we're still waiting for the first quarter to find out how much it is.
Since we're here on that subject, I have a duplex, I have a phantom meter. The second meter registers what the flow is into the second unit. Last billing period, I got billed on the phantom meter, which I'm paying for through the flow on the first one, which, since I don't have a separate line going into the unit, I should only be billed once. And they're missing the purpose of having the phantom, because that's supposed to give me a reading of what's flowing in so I can split the bill. And there is no record of why it was put in. And this was, very early on in my purchasing the place, which was probably 2000.
So you pay for a second meter that you don't have there?
No, I have it.
Oh, you have it?
It's inside, but I don't have two lines coming into the two units.
Oh, but you're paying for a phantom meter, you said, so I don't
Well,
understand.
I'm
You're
being
paying
charged
yeah.
for my water that I'm paying for on the first, flowing into the other one.
Right.
And so it was so complicated getting the readings from town, we just now, the two tenants split the bill based on the number of people in the units,
Oh.
which is $1 a day per person is typically what it was. So I just want to go on record.
Sorry, Linda, I don't understand that. So you have a meter off of another meter?
Now, well, the water flow from one unit, after it comes into the house and is measured, it then splits and surfaces one unit and then the other one.
Is it a legal two-family?
Yes.
So you should have 2 meters, right? For a legal two-family?
So I totally renovated and they didn't require me. I had an architect, wasn't required to put in a separate meter for the house.
So
It's like Railway Towers, they have 1 meter, 108 units.
so you have the second meter, so you know what, I'm sorry. You have the second meter, so you know what to charge that tenant for the water.
Well, that was the whole idea, which I paid to put that second meter in, but because I couldn't get, so when they did the meter readings, they sometimes would do it and then sometimes they wouldn't. So it wasn't accurate. And now the charge, it was on the bill from the last couple cycles.
Well, you may not know this answer. In the meter that's read by the town, is it before the lines split?
Yeah, the first one before it's, yes.
Well, then you should only,
They should only be measuring one and then not,
if in fact the meter is before where the lines split, I think you're correct.
well, I know I'm correct. I don't get up here not knowing.
I didn't say you weren't. I said if that's occurring, I think you're correct.
Linda,
That's what I said.
can you send me an email tomorrow with the address where that is? You're saying there's a water, from off the main, there's a meter that comes in by your house. Once the water goes through the meter and is measured, you're saying it goes into another meter, that same water? Okay.
Well, one goes straight and the other goes through the wall into the second unit.
I know, but is the water going through the meter and then going into the second meter, so you're being charged twice on that? That's what I'm asking.
Right, only recently.
No, it either had to be from the beginning when the plumber put it in or from not. I would be more than happy to come over there tomorrow with our water department and look at it. So if you'll send me the address tonight, you have my email address, correct? DPW@belmar.com.
Okay, I was going to say MPM.
No, just DPW@belmar.com.
Thank you.
We'll be there tomorrow and we'll look at it. No, whenever, tomorrow, the next day, whenever you say.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, Bob?
Bob Lynch, 9th Avenue, Belmar. I guess I just want to talk about the numbers a little bit. I did see the presentation, and they said our revenue was like $3.2 million for water and sewer from the 3,000 or so families. and our expenses were $3.7 million, so, or 3.9 million, I think it was. 3.9 million, so we have $700,000 shortfall. We have some surplus, we're taking the surplus. We have maybe $300,000 we need to find through the utility. So it sounds like what are we trying to get? 10% more revenue? What's the percentage revenue we're trying to get to balance the
Well,
budget?
it's tiered now, so like, people that you only use 5,000 gallons, which was
No, I mean
most
the
of the
total,
people.
but there's still gonna be a total, Mayor.
Yeah,
We're
but
gonna
it's
need to
more
come
than
up with
10%.
$300,000 or $400,000.
I think it ended up almost being 13%, it's in that range somewhere. But we try to put it on the heavier users, the ones that tax the system the
Right.
most, so.
And then,
And try to keep the 1,500 people or so that use only the 5,000 gallons a quarter, try to keep them as low as possible. So, you know, we try to tier it so that, you know, most
And I
of our
think-
residents aren't getting hit hard.
and I think, like April said, we renegotiated some of our costs because I think in the presentation it said our costs from New Jersey American Water was actually lower by almost $80,000 or $100,000 from the previous year. That was in the presentation that the auditor gave the other day. So, our cost of water is, and then we pump our own water the other 4 months of the year. So our cost of the water is not the problem. I agree with you. It's the infrastructure.
Right.
So, and the utility is to me, it's more like a co-op. We all belong to this. We all belong to it. We all own it. We pay for the service. We get water and our sewage gets treated. And then the pipes and the plumbing and everything else gets covered. So to me, it's whatever it costs, as long as we're managing that utility properly, we just divide it between the 3,000 representatives of this co-op, you know, and as long as there's a fairness to it, and that's where I think we've talked, and I've talked about it before, you know, the beach should be charged for water, and it should be fair, you know, they shouldn't just we shouldn't be allowed to run showers there, you know, all day long for, you know, the whole summer, and bathhouses on the beach, flushing toilets, we should have water bill for showers, and we should have water and sewer for the bathrooms.
Yeah.
It's just
And that's
better
what-
managing of the
That's what we're gonna
utility.
do this summer we'll put meters on them, so we know exactly what the water usage is down there. So we can get reimbursed from the beach utility.
Who manages the water sewer utility?
Who manages it? Well, the maintenance of it goes through Mr. Campbell.
Who's the business manager of it?
I guess it's Kelly would be. Kelly and the CFO. You know, CFO, or, you know, she was the one that, I think, basically started finding all these places that had
You know,
zero reads.
Yeah, I thank you guys for finding, you know, zero reads, people that haven't paid for years, faulty meters, you know, it's not, that's why I said fairness. I don't mind if I'm one of 3,000, I pay my fair share, you know. And my sump pump, which doesn't, thankfully I don't need it very much, but it just runs out into the garden, you know, it doesn't go into the sewer.
Yeah, Bob, I gotta share with you, and as greatly, as much as the physical mismanagement of this system has bothered me, which has put us in this position here tonight, what really upsets me is the physical mismanagement and deals that were cut for people. That creates an inequitable system it creates an unequitable situation, and I agree with you 100%, it's wrong. We're going to work very hard to correct that.
And I know in reading the ordinance, you're talking about the mayor, you mentioned multifamily, the Del Rio Towers, I mean, I don't know how many, did you say 100-some units there?
104 Marina View.
Yeah, and they weren't even paying, if they were paying their bill, they would be charged $88.95 for their first 5,000 gallons.
$77.35
For that whole building, and then they would be charged, you know, whatever those other rates were, $17.79 every 1,000 gallons over that. So, but individuals, we pay that base for our first 5,000, and now you've got 100 units, they should be paying it. And I know you're saying you're gonna charge them $50 a unit, if I understand it, is that correct?
Correct.
So all these multifamily, all these condos and all these apartments that have been converted to condos or other apartments, they're all gonna be charged.
There's roughly
$50.
900 of them that we found. In finding out that Marina View Towers was not paying a water bills in 16, we looked at the system and to find out why the system was broken. And we found out that there was no fail-safe in the water department accounting office that was utilized, that if there was a zero read or a no read, it would indicate that the tenant was only paying the minimum, which is $77.35 a quarter, 306, whatever it was a year.
Yeah.
So a flag should go up and say, wait a minute, that's a huge complex, it's 104 units, how is that all they're paying? So we fixed that system with Kelly Williams and the water department. In fairness, we changed the billing system, then we went out to look at how many houses and multifamily houses did not have a meter and were not charged like everybody else was, to be fair and equitable.
Yeah.
And it's over 900, so
So
that's,
that's like another $45,000, $50 times 900
right, a quarter,
per quarter.
right, and that's fair. Why are you paying it and somebody else isn't? So that's all the work that we've been doing, we're trying to fix the whole fail-safe. It boggles my mind why somebody was only paying $77 a quarter in a huge complex like that. How did they not know?
My wife said, don't get up and say anything.
That never stopped you.
So,
I guess she's not
because
here.
she said, I think you just said, our base used to be $77. Our base is gonna be $88 per quarter. So she said, I'm not worried about that $10 a quarter.
It's so much more than that.
Now, so I mean, and that's like a 10% increase, so maybe there is like an increase to everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody did. And then multifamily houses and,
And
somebody
collecting the
has,
money that we haven't collected.
somebody who has multifamily house, even a two-family house, there's gonna be that $50 charge.
Yes. Yes,
Because I'm gonna turn my brother in for that one.
you should, you should.
Two brothers I'm gonna turn.
Turn them all in.
There's $100, we're gonna get a quarter from those two guys. I appreciate it, you're trying. I'm not sure that I agree with the tiering it. I mean, it's whatever gallons of water you use, whatever we have to calculate out that rate so that we have $400,000 of extra money, that should be the number.
Bob, I'll tell you why I asked that question about the tiering, because I'm very concerned about seniors who are on fixed incomes, who we want to keep in this town, who, has been here for a long time, giving back. But someone who's an expert in this field explained to me this, and I thought that this was very interesting. Oftentimes, these tiers, when you have the higher fees for the higher usage, they have a tendency to be obviously commercial projects. And what was explained to me by someone who has a career in this field is that wastewater costs more to treat because it's, the composition of it is very different than what you find that goes down a residential drain. So that was shared with me that it's a justification to do the tiering because for those who have higher flow, the cost to treat that water is typically more because the water is not as clean, for lack of a better word. I'm going to get some more information on that, but someone shared that with me.
That's not the way we get billed from SMRSA though. SMRSA said we used 1 million gallons, was metered through into Lake Como's pumping station, then we get charged whatever our fee is. They don't distinguish between whether it's got more flushes or less flushes.
Okay. Yeah, I want to look into that further because I had some questions on that myself.
I mean, if they were identifying like total solids in our waste stream or something like that, and then charging us for that, but it's not that complicated. And then even the tiers, I don't know I can't figure out what the value of these tiers are. I mean, they don't seem to be that much, so they're going to pay, a couple dollars more per 1,000 gallons.
It's trying to keep
It's
the people that use the most water,
That tax
and
system.
pressure on the infrastructure, they'll pay more. There are seniors that are under that
It's,
minimum?
I don't know how much more that's gonna accumulate. Instead of paying $17.79, it's gonna be 21, so it's $4 more, $3.30 more per 1,000 gallons that they're gonna pay. I don't know that's, I don't know what that, if you multiply it out by all the gallons of water we use, I don't know what that amounts to. It just seems like tiering it, it sounds good, but I don't think it's accumulated, you're not getting a lot of dollars out of that tier.
Well, some people are using like 50,000 gallons a quarter, stuff like that, so yeah, it'll add up. But
All right, well, see what, it seems like we're gonna find out what the new numbers are gonna be after we get all these.
yeah, well, we had our auditor going through a whole mess of different scenarios, our CFO going through different scenarios. I mean, this just didn't happen overnight. That's why we had to have a special
But-
meeting, because
Somewhere, Mark, we have to know, I'm gonna ask you one more time. What is the new number? Right now, we're getting 3.2 million revenue from water and sewer bills. What's that new number calculate out based on all your estimates of these new charges we're gonna get? Somebody must know it, otherwise how did we come up with this number? We had to come
yeah,
up
we
with a
don't
number.
have it on here.
Bob came in with
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, because our auditor came up
With the
with the formula.
$3.2 million, as I'm not sure, I presume that's the revenues that we received. But as Mr. Kirschbaum said to you, there are people who didn't pay, or they underpaid.
Well, then we're gonna get more revenues.
We hope.
We hope,
Yeah,
and
we
we'll
are.
know that.
We'll build them.
We'll know
Yeah, we
that.
have to get more revenues to make up the
We'll
shortfall.
know that this year.
But we should know how much, you should be able to tell us, I would like you to say, we're gonna collect 3.8 million based on all these changes, we're gonna get 3.8 million this year.
Well,
Somehow we should know, somebody should know that number.
it comes close to what we need to get the budget through with the state. So when we send our budget down to the state, it's gotta match it's gotta match the
But it's hard to,
expenses.
it's hard to vote on something if you don't know the number.
This was the first reading.
Yeah, we're gonna have our auditor here at the next,
Right.
meeting, and he's gonna go through it all for the second reading.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Wait, what's your name? Bob, sorry.
Hey, how's it going? Hey, Bob said a lot of things that outside 405th Ave, Belmar. And Bob said a lot of things that, I was, seriously considering saying tonight. But there's a couple things. Number one, my concern is that, last year the taxes go up, this year the water bill's going up, and there's not a whole lot left, so, what's gonna happen in the future? Where are you gonna try to dig for some more cash? But more importantly, I wanna know, when it comes to the beach, I'm on the beach quite a bit in the summertime, but I don't use the shower, and I generally don't use the restroom facilities, but there's thousands of people, that come onto the beach that use the shower, that use the bathrooms, and I would assume that somebody pays for that water and that sewage. And who in fact is that? Is that the beach? Or is that the town?
Well, it's the town paying, but now
Oh,
we're
so
gonna,
the
we're
town.
gonna, we're gonna meter it.
So the town is gonna implement an increase. Is that on the tier basis?
No, we're gonna take some of that money off the beach utility for the water sewer.
They had an
Because
arbitrary
they're-
number.
they're flushing the toilets, don't go down the sewer
Explain this
system.
to me. You're going on a tier system.
Right.
So, I really don't care about the tier systems too much, but, because I'm, a single household, so I know I'm pretty fixed, but, when it comes to the public using the beach, what tier do they fall on? And who bears the brunt of that? Is it gonna be the taxpayer, or is it gonna be the town?
So this has been going on for a long time. Where were all of us at that time? This has been going on. Right now.
What's been going on?
Right now, we're gonna meter everything, and it will come out of the beach utility. That's where it's gonna come from.
So what's gonna happen is then, what you're saying is that the tier factor is in fact gonna, be implemented onto the beach?
Well, we don't know.
We
because
don't
We have no idea how
We
many.
don't know. So we don't know. It's never,
We don't even know how much
it's never
water is used.
been monitored before.
Well, I
What do
think-
we have to go on?
No, I think
It's
we're
never
talking-
been done. So
Yeah,
now you gotta have a baseline, don't you?
Yeah.
Don't you?
But
Okay, we're going
inevitably,
for the
inevitably.
baseline.
Sorry, I think what the mayor said is that if the beach utility exceeds the gallonage, they'll have to pay their share. Out of the beach utility, they're gonna pay it on a tiered basis. So if they use, I don't know what the numbers are, the third tier, they'll get charged what the third tier is per gallon. And that'll come out of the beach utility.
So that means that it goes from taxes increase to water increase. And ultimately, what that means is that the people who reside in town are now gonna have to pay more for a beach badge because we know that what's gonna happen is once you establish that baseline, you're gonna see that the amount of usage is gonna be higher than what the baseline is because it's an artificial baseline to begin with. You don't have any history of the baseline.
No,
Right,
isn't that, no. we
Right,
don't.
so-
Isn't that a shame?
so that's my point.
Nobody ever thought of that before.
They
Well,
just
maybe
utilize an arbitrary number.
I thought of it.
You thought of it?
I thought of it 5 years ago.
It's your fault.
You know, the idea is that we have restrooms out there that are utilized by people that don't even have a beach badge. We have water fountains that are used without people that even buy a beach badge. In addition to that, we have people that aren't even residents of town that take showers out there. I don't use any of those facilities, but I pay for my beach badge.
We all do.
You know, the idea is that, you know, it's just that this, it seems like instead of trying to, you know, bring, you know, the finances in control, you know, what we're beginning to do is now that we hit, you know, I was in the country club business, all right? So all I know about are dues and, you know, incidentalities with respect to, you know, locker fees and bag storage and that kind of stuff. But it seems that, you know, first last year you hit the dues, raised the taxes. So now what we're doing is we're hitting the locker room fees, now we're hitting the bag storage fees, you know, all to get more revenue into town. So now we're beginning to nickel and dime, you know, and it's unfair to the town. And it's unfair to the town because we cater to people that don't even live here. And what this should be about is about the people who live here. And we should be controlling the expenses so we can make it affordable to live here. You know, I tell you, I love this town. I've been here for 26 years. And the fact of the matter is that it's becoming unaffordable for me and for a lot of people.
I've been here for 40 years.
Well, it's great that you've been here for 40
I'm on a
years.
fixed income. I understand, and I feel sorry for the people, the single people who are in my bracket. And we're trying to protect them with the water. We're not gonna hit the 2,000 in there. I understand, Si, and when I see on the beach, all these thousands of people that are coming here that, you know, and love the beach as much as we love it.
So let me address what you said before. So now we're gonna have a line of which we're gonna have a baseline for water. You know, so now we can go forward. Why don't we have the baseline and then charge the people that come in here more of a beach pass instead of being $7, be it $9,
And then
before we
start-
attack the people who live here?
But
We
Si,
are
if we raise it.
What?
Yeah, so if we raise it to $10, let's say, it's going to affect the people who live here, not just the people who visit.
What do you mean?
Trying-
Why is it gonna affect the people who live here?
We got my beach badge, don't you? So if you're gonna raise a beach badge, you can't
Not
say.
for the residents, I'm talking for the
Well, you
people who do dailies. Those are the people who use the showers. I have people changing their clothes on my street.
Sir, you
Then why
can't
should we
charge a different fee for a beach badge simply because you live out of town. It's illegal.
Dude, listen, there's a difference between a resident and a day badge. Do you know that?
It's a season badge.
Do you know that?
My God, what are you doing this for? Yes, of course I know.
Okay, so
You said
then, you know,
you
so
charge-
you just nullified your answer. Because the idea is that I buy a season badge. But, you know, for someone who buys a day badge, they pay a different rate than I do for a season badge. So
You
understand what I'm
You
saying.
suggested just paying the people that
This is
don't
the
live
second
in
time that you've responded improperly to something I had to say.
So let me just, so when we came in, one of the things that we discovered is that the property owners, municipal taxpayers, were supplementing many different areas of the town. What we're trying to do very diligently now is to understand and get a real good handle on the cost of each of these different business parts in the town. Like you said, the golf carts, the bag storage, the pro shop, or whatever. And have those operate independently. So rather than supplement the beach, trying to have the beach operate independently. That's why I asked the question about the marina with the resolution. You know, the marina we want to operate independently. We want the water to operate independently. What we've done for special events is remarkable over the past year, and having those events, which the taxpayers were paying for overtime for police, overtime for DPW, all these things, really wrap that in. So limiting those special events during high usage areas, moving them to off-season areas, and then have those events pay for the cost of municipal coverage. So we're trying very diligently to get in that direction, and it's not going to happen in a matter of months because we don't have a clear understanding of very bad records from the previous administration of what these things cost. But we're trying to go in that direction so that the impact of the taxpayers is as minimal as possible. That's what you'd like to see, right? Because I think that's what we absolutely have to do, and it's hard when you don't have historical data and good records to try to get that information. But we're making historic steps, I think. The special events is a good example, and this water with the beach and metering it, they had some kind of formula that no one could, our current professionals couldn't understand how they reached that formula before. So let's make the users pay for it, not the taxpayers. Let's make the people who are using it pay for it, not the taxpayers.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Anyone else? Yes?
Hi, Sue Finnegan, 408 Fifth.
Hi, how are you?
What?
No, I said hello, how are you?
Oh, hi. So what I've learned tonight is that in our water bills, we're paying for all the water usage at the beach. Is that true?
As of right now, yes, but that's why we're gonna meter it, so we know exactly what is going on.
That is great. And you've discovered this other large complex that has not paid any water, and that's going to be corrected.
Several.
In the meanwhile, we need to raise our rates to cover the cost before we can get everybody to pay for their own. My objection is in the tiered level. Yes, we want to keep our seniors. I'm a senior, I want to stay, but I've also got a grandchild. So I'm doing a heck of a lot more wash than ever before. Why should my gallon of water cost more than your gallon of water? Why? I go to the gas station, I buy gas. You buy gas, we pay the same price. Doesn't matter how many miles you drive. I do
Well, the
not
tier system-
like the tier system. That's all I have to say.
All right,
Okay.
all right, thank you. Anyone else? All right,
I have a motion to close the public session and adjourn the meeting.
second.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you all for coming out.
Aye.